Hey y'all, I'm Ajene from Life with Ajene, and welcome back to Black Philosophy of Hillman University. First lecture I went over and I just basically talked about the four main blocks of philosophy. Today what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to touch into one of those specific areas, and that's epistemology. And so our first Black philosopher, or somebody I would like to call a philosopher, is someone who's engaged directly with epistemology in their work. I'm going to go ahead and announce our first philosopher. So our first Black philosopher that I'll be talking about for this series is Patricia Hill Collins.
Yay!
Now, if you've never heard of Patricia Hill Collins, Patricia Hill Collins is a self-referred to sociologist. One of her most notable works is Black Feminist Thought, which I would argue is a combination of epistemology with a little bit of metaphysical arranging in there. It's not fully philosophy. It definitely has a sociological tone to it and approach to things, but at the same time, by means of outlining a whole epistemological system and digging deep into that and what it is and how it's valid, that is epistemological theorizing, and that is epistemological work, which is philosophy. So it's really exciting to actually engage with Patricia Hill Collins in her philosophy and looking at epistemology, for me at least. You can go check it out for yourself and nerd out. I'm actually going to have a link to one of her papers attached to this video. Now here's the thing, the article that I found, it definitely gives a little heavy on the academic tone. Sometimes the terms can be a little lofty and the arrangement can be kind of confusing. So I will say this, if you struggle with reading academic papers, I would recommend just taking notes as you go along of things that stick out to you. You might have to read it a couple of times, but it could be a really awesome experience if you just give yourself some time and some space with that. She's saying some really cool things. And actually in this video, what I'm going to do very briefly is I am going to break it down a little bit so that can also help you through the article. So the article is called Patricia Hill Collins, Intersecting Oppressions. Because of time, I'm only going to be able to actually get to the philosophical components of the paper, but there's a lot more going on than just the philosophy here. So just letting you know that when you read it, expect more than what I get to, but we're doing some philosophy talk here. At the very beginning of the paper, epistemology is something that Patricia Hill Collins points out and defines. She says that epistemology is the study of knowledge. And then she gives examples of what that looks like and how that sounds. And what she is generally talking about is the Black feminist epistemology and its potential for making significant social change and activism in the world and in social structures. To really get to that point, that ending piece, what she does is she starts off by outlining what Black feminist epistemology is. And she does that in part by contrasting it to Eurocentric positivism, which I would just say is fancy academia talk for the dominant thought structure at place. So what we're familiar with in our day-to-day is, especially in America, rational thought and being able to prove things as true by scientific process, ruling out all other objections, having this kind of back and forth, and the last thought standing wins, and that is the ultimate truth because it stands up against any argument you can put towards it, and it follows this very scientific standardized method, right? So you have this Eurocentric positivism as an epistemology. That's our traditional. And then you have Black feminist epistemology. I'm using this because I don't have anything else over here right now. But then you have Black feminist epistemology. And so with Black feminist epistemology, she says this is also a valid style of doing the study into knowledge. This is also a valid system of thought. However, it's oftentimes in direct opposition to that Eurocentric positivism. Why is that? Well, whereas over here, we're saying, all right, we need to be totally separate. There's no emotion. There's no seeing of self. And knowledge, when we get truth, it's going to come from going through this gauntlet. And it's really last idea standing is the one and only truth, right? It will stand up to any objections. And maybe if there are multiple truths, they have to stand up to any kinds of objections that exist in the world. Well, On the other hand, over here, Black feminist epistemology is all about seeing yourself within the subject matter and having your emotions play a part. Your emotions inform the work that you're doing. You have dialogue. So instead of last idea standing kind of thought, we're being cumulative. We're, instead of leaving with one or limited thoughts, we're adding on into a pot, into a mixture of different ideas and talking about our different truths and lived experiences and building up a system of truths and a system of knowledge. Because knowledge is coming from such a personal place in Black feminist epistemology, we are then held accountable to all these things that are within us, right? And we have to answer for things like our character, our value, and our ethics, and able to break down the truths that are existing within us and our position within what we're talking about. So I think that's really amazing. She has more amazing works. Like I said, you can look up that book, Black Feminist Thought. You can look up her books on intersectionality, a lot of options. And I think she has some of the most powerful sociological, philosophical combination work that I've read. So she's one of my favorites. If you want homework, find 3 highlights from that paper that resonate with you, that stick out to you. And I want you to find applications for some of the things she's saying in your life. So yeah, I'll just read one last quote from Collins to end this, because that'll kind of give you an idea of how you might do this work and do your homework. Black feminist intellectuals are those who think reflexively and publicly about their own lived experiences within the context of broader social issues and ideas. So what that means really simply is that a Black feminist intellectual can be anybody who's just doing this kind of reflexive thought about their life, right? And they're connecting it, right? So they're doing the reflective work on their own life and they're connecting it within the broader context. I'm connecting my lived experience to these broader social issues of what's going on in the world today, what we're engaging with these ideas. So what that means is that a Black feminist intellectual can be anybody, from the professor to your mom and your grandma, your aunties, having a conversation and talking about like what they've been dealing with in their own lives and connecting it to what they're seeing out in the world. So Black feminist intellectuals are at your kitchen tables. Black feminist intellectuals are on your TV screens. They're writers. They are rappers. They are all of these people that engage in this kind of reflexive thought and are connecting it. You don't need lettering for that. How I see that in my life is I recognize the fact that Collins will consider me a Black feminist intellectual, because I definitely do work of looking at my own experience and then connecting it to the world. The world is a very interesting space right now. But what I also see is that on TikTok, there's a lot of Black feminist intellectuals out here doing the work of connecting what they're going through all these different artistic styles or just straightforward styles, and talking about broader social contexts and these ideas that are floating around right now. There's a lot of bold stuff being said politically, and there's a lot of Black feminist intellectuals engaging with that. And it sounds different from a bunch of different people. So yeah, I am gonna sit with that. And that's how you do it. You take a couple quotes and you're saying, yeah, like, I think that's really interesting because this is how I see this in my life. So I see that in my life. And if you're a Black woman, you're doing Black feminist epistemology. Double. If you're not a Black woman, you're doing other kinds of epistemology that, you know, can be highlighted based on how you read this paper. So I'd love to see in the comments your guys' quotes that stood out to you, or how you see connections, or some thoughts you have about Collins's style or understanding of things, maybe questions you have about things. If you all want, we can have like office hour and I can answer a few questions if people are struggling with the paper and understanding things. But for now, I'm gonna leave, and I'm excited. That was a really fun first video. Look forward to doing the next one with you all. See you next time.